Parker Schnabel and Tony Beats are the stars of Discovery's #1 show, Gold Rush, which is back for season 9. This season will be unlike any other, featuring new miners and rivalries as the crews mine for gold.
Following the occurrence of a terrible event that rocked Parker Schnabel's world, his life is in extreme danger. The star of Gold Rush has been exposed to a great number of dangers, but this time, the stakes are higher than they have ever been. Parker, who was well known for his fearless attitude and astute choices, always appeared to triumph over even the most difficult challenges. Does Parker have a chance of surviving this potentially fatal circumstance? It is imperative that we delve deeply into the matter in order to unearth some concealed information that the showrunner does not want anyone to be aware of. When everything went wrong not too long ago, Parker's career as a gold miner took a terrifying turn. What had been a routine day at work turned into a terrifying experience in a very short amount of time. Parker was confronted with a situation that was about survival for the very first time in his life. Suddenly, the courageous gold miner found himself in a difficult situation where he was fighting for his life. Something terrible had gone wrong. Prior to delving into the shocking particulars, it is abundantly clear that this occurrence is significantly more dangerous than anyone could have ever imagined, and the subsequent events will leave you completely and utterly stunned. This article delves into the specifics of the near-catastrophic event that nearly cost Parker Schnabel everything, including how it transpired and what it means for his personal and professional future. Additionally, we will take a look back at the lengthy and frequently perilous journey that led Parker to the current position he is in, shedding light on the ways in which the recent accident has irrevocably altered him. The beginning of Parker Schnabel's story takes place outside of Haines, Alaska, in the harsh and isolated wilderness. Parker was born on July 22, 1994, and from a young age, he was surrounded by the Alaskan landscape, which was both beautiful and harsh. His family had a long history of involvement in the gold mining industry. His grandfather, John Schnabel, was a well-known gold miner who owned the Big Nugget mine. Parker was inspired by his grandfather's stories and work from a young age. His grandfather was the owner of the Big Nugget mine. During his childhood, Parker spent a significant portion of his time working at mining sites, gaining experience in the industry. Other children might have been playing video games or hanging out with their friends. By the time Parker was a teenager, he had already developed an interest in gold mining because he admired his grandfather's work ethic and his enthusiasm for the industry. Over time, he took on an increasing amount of responsibility as a result of his fascination with the industry and his desire to demonstrate his proficiency. Parker, who was only 16 years old at the time, was already responsible for leading a mining crew, and he did not waste any time in demonstrating to the world what he was capable of. Even though he was young, he demonstrated that he was a natural leader. The fact that he is able to remain focused on his objectives, make intelligent choices, and handle pressure sets him apart from others. It was not the case that he was merely another child tinkering with mechanical devices. He was a formidable competitor in the gold mining industry, and he garnered the respect of those who were in his immediate vicinity. Gold Rush is a reality television show that follows miners as they dig for gold in some of the most dangerous and unpredictable environments on the planet. Parker's breakthrough moment came when he joined the cast of Gold Rush. The viewers were immediately captivated by his doggedness and determination, as well as his willingness to take significant risks in order to maximize the potential for even greater rewards. But despite the fact that Parker was ambitious and driven, gold mining is a profession that is fraught with danger, and he quickly realized that it was not going to be easy all the time, no matter what. Fans have witnessed Parker's development from a young and eager teenager to a seasoned miner over the course of his career. Throughout his life, he has been confronted with a multitude of obstacles, ranging from mechanical breakdowns to severe weather conditions and even the death of his cherished grandfather. When faced with challenges, however, Parker always managed to overcome them and emerge victorious. This was true regardless of the circumstances. In the course of his mining career, his tenacity and determination became the defining characteristics, and he made it a habit to set higher standards for himself with each passing season. Nevertheless, Despite the fact that Parker may have earned a reputation for being fearless, even the most experienced miners are susceptible to being taken aback by the unpredictability of the dangers that are present in the international gold mining industry. During the course of this season, those threats were brought to a head in the form of a catastrophic event that altered everything for Parker Schnabel. There is no way to know what the future holds for a gold miner. Every season, it seems as though the stakes are getting higher, and the risks are becoming more intimidating. During the past few years, Parker Schnabel has been more determined than ever before to broaden his business operations and extract even more gold from the earth. He has taken on more ambitious goals than he ever has before. However, along with that level of ambition comes an increased vulnerability to risk. The most recent season of Gold Rush was shaping up to be one of the most intense seasons that Parker had ever produced. In addition to contending with the fierce competition that he faced from other miners, he was also contending with the unpredictability of the wild terrain. In spite of the fact that Parker had his sights set on new territory, this land proved to be particularly difficult. Every single day was a struggle due to the fact that the location was so remote and the weather conditions were extremely severe. It was a perfect storm of challenges, and Parker's determination to succeed was put to the ultimate test under the most difficult circumstances. The near miss that Parker experienced left him shaken, but the challenging times that were to come would push him even further. Parker is unable to escape the fatal collapse. The levels of stress that Parker experienced were noticeably higher than they had been in previous years from the very beginning of the season. Managing multiple crews, dealing with heavy machinery that was always in danger of breaking down, and racing against the clock to meet his lofty production goals were all things that he was doing at the same time. Because of the pressure, his workdays were becoming increasingly long and exhausting, and the stress was beginning to have an adverse effect on both his mental and physical health. However, in a manner that is characteristic of Parker, he refused to back down. He had made up his mind to demonstrate that he was capable of overcoming any challenge, regardless of how challenging or hazardous it might be. However, despite the fact that Parker's highest strengths have always been his drive and ambition, it is possible that they have also been his greatest weaknesses. As the season progressed, it became abundantly clear that the conditions were becoming progressively more dangerous. There was a lot of instability in the ground, the weather was unpredictable, and the equipment was strained from being used constantly. Even though Parker had experienced similar dangers in the past, this season felt very different. It seemed as though everything was on the verge of falling off the mountain. Suddenly, without any prior warning, calamity materialized. The beginning of the day for Parker Schnabel and his crew was quite similar to the beginning of any other day. They had been working diligently on a new section of the mining site, with the primary objective being the extraction of a promising vein of gold-rich ground. The days leading up to this had been marked by unfavorable weather conditions, with heavy rains making the terrain even more challenging to navigate. However, Parker was confident that they were on the verge of achieving a significant payday, despite the difficulties that they were facing. While operating their massive machines, digging and moving dirt, the crew was dispersed across the site in which they were working. The operation was being supervised by Parker, as he always does, and he was making sure that everything was operating without any problems. However, then, without any prior warning, calamity began to strike. An unexpected collapse occurred in a significant portion of the ground that they were working on. Due to the fact that the foundation had been weakened by the heavy rains, the terrain began to collapse in an instant. Several members of the crew, including Parker, were unable to escape the dangerous situation that was created by the collapse, which resulted in them being trapped in an area that was rapidly becoming a death trap. The noise was so loud that it was deafening. It was the sound of machinery being crushed under the weight of the falling earth, the shouting of crew members who were frantically trying to escape, and the rumble of the ground shifting beneath them. Parker found himself in a precarious circumstance that threatened his life. Because of the collapse, his vehicle had been struck, which resulted in it flipping over and becoming partially buried. Parker was unable to move for a brief period of time, which was a terrifying experience, as the ground continued to give way around him the entire time. As a result of the dust and debris that was floating through the air, visibility was impaired, and the crew experienced a palpable sense of panic. They were well aware that they needed to move quickly in order to save Parker and the other individuals concerned. Instantaneously, rescue efforts were initiated. However, the situation was not at all straightforward. As a result of the collapse, the environment had become unstable, and any mistake could potentially cause additional landslides to occur. The crew needed to be careful in their work, striking a balance between the necessity of rescuing their friends and the possibility of making the situation even more dire. As they worked against the clock, each second seemed like an eternity. They were aware that any delay could mean the difference between life and death, so they paid close attention to every second. Parker Schnabel and his crew were unable to escape the wreckage for a number of hours, uncertain of what would happen to them. The team that was tasked with rescue had to proceed with extreme caution in order to successfully navigate the hazardous terrain and make certain that they did not cause any additional collapses. The conditions were highly unstable, and the level of tension at the location was extremely high. When Parker's life was in jeopardy, everyone was aware of the situation. Eventually, after what seemed like an eternity, the rescue team was able to get Parker to the appropriate location. By some miracle, he was still alive. It was a terrifying ordeal, but Parker had managed to survive the collapse. However, he did not escape the collapse unscathed after suffering injuries. His injuries, which included a concussion and several broken ribs, were not life-threatening. However, they were severe enough to necessitate immediate medical attention regardless of the severity of the injuries. There was a clear expression of relief on the faces of Parker's crew members as they were being pulled from the wreckage. A clear indication of the emotional toll that the incident had taken on them was the fact that they had come perilously close to losing their leader. This was a moment that brought a sense of sobering to a man who had spent his entire career testing the limits of what was possible and taking chances. Parker was confronted with the reality of death, and it was a reality that shook him to his very core with its impact. What took place on that day would remain with Parker in ways that no one could have anticipated, despite the fact that he survived. Parker's struggle to recuperate. The crew relocated Parker to the closest hospital as quickly as possible, where he was treated by medical professionals for his injuries. In spite of the fact that his physical wounds would eventually heal, the psychological impact of the incident was in a completely different league. Parker had a reputation for remaining calm under pressure and for being able to handle even the most dangerous situations with ease. This reputation did not change over time. On the other hand, things were different this time. This time, the threat had come dangerously close to taking his life. In the aftermath of the terrifying ordeal, Parker Schnabel found himself in a position that was foreign to him. He was recuperating in a hospital bed and contemplating the precarious nature of life. He had been shaken by the near miss, and while he was thankful that he had survived, the experience compelled him to reevaluate his approach to mining and the risks that he had been taking up until that point. In the days that followed the incident, Parker was very open and honest about the impact that the collapse had on him. "I've been in perilous situations before," he admitted. This, however, was not the case. This was a very important moment. It forces you to pause and reflect on the things that are truly important. The event served as a wake-up call for Parker, who had always taken great pride in his work ethic and his capacity to persevere through even the most difficult challenges. In his pursuit of gold, he came to the realization that he had been taking an excessive amount of risks, pushing himself and his crew to their absolute limits. Despite the fact that he had always been aware of the risks associated with mining, the collapse had brought home to him how unpredictable and unforgiving the environment could be. Parker found himself struggling with the weight of responsibility as he began his recovery. This responsibility was not only for his own safety, but also for the safety of his crew. As he put it, "I consider these guys to be like family." Being able to witness how terrified they were during the collapse and being aware that I might have lost them was a powerful experience for me. In addition, Parker admitted that the event had caused him to reconsider a number of the choices he had previously made. The end goal, which is to acquire as much gold as possible, has always been my primary concern. However, after what took place, I came to the realization that I need to focus on being more cautious. I cannot continue to push myself and my crew to the limit without taking into consideration the potential consequences. Parker was determined to get back on his feet, despite the fact that the incident had taken a toll on both his physical and emotional health. His recuperation was gradual but steady, and he made it abundantly clear that he would not allow the accident to prevent him from engaging in activities that he cherished. However, he also made a veiled reference to the fact that going forward, he would approach mining with a greater degree of caution and consideration. He said, "I love this job, but there is nothing that gives me the right to put my life or the lives of my crew in danger." Following the near-fatal collapse, Gold Rush fans were left wondering what the future holds for Parker Schnabel. This was a question that was left unanswered. It is possible that he would continue to push himself and his crew to their limits, but it is also possible that this near miss would motivate him to take a step back and reevaluate his priorities first. Parker himself has been forthright about the fact that the occurrence has prompted him to reconsider his strategy. In spite of the fact that he continues to be enthusiastic about gold mining, he has admitted that the dangers involved are greater than they have ever been, and that he needs to be more responsible in the way that he manages those dangers. He said, "I can't continue to push myself in the same manner that I have been. It is imperative that I strike a balance between pursuing my objectives and ensuring the safety of everyone." However, for those who are familiar with Parker, it is difficult to conceive of him taking a complete step back. He comes from a family of gold miners. It is what motivates him, what he finds exciting, and what provides him with a sense of purpose. Although he may have become more cautious as a result of the collapse, it is highly unlikely that he will completely give up his mining career. Instead, it is likely that Parker will discover new ways to pursue his passion while simultaneously adopting a more measured approach to the risks that are associated with these pursuits. The community of Gold Rush will be keeping a close eye on Parker as he recovers and makes plans for the future. They will be interested in seeing how he moves forward. Important discussions about the ethical implications of reality television shows like Gold Rush, in which stars are frequently pushed to their limits for the sake of drama and ratings, have been sparked as a result of his near-death experience. Fans have voiced their concern that the risks are simply too high and that the show ought to take a more cautious approach to filming in order to avoid any potential negative consequences. As Parker begins to recover, the threats he has been exposed to prompt him to give careful consideration to the next steps he ought to take. The dark side of gold mining. The recent near-death experience that Parker Schnabel had serves as a stark reminder of the inherent dangers that are prevalent in the gold mining industry. The reality is that mining is one of the most dangerous professions in the world, despite the fact that miners may be motivated to take risks by the excitement of the hunt and the possibility of becoming wealthy. On a daily basis, miners are confronted with challenges that pose a threat to their lives, such as collapsing terrain, malfunctioning machinery, and extreme weather conditions. The mining of gold is not only physically demanding, but it also places a significant mental and emotional burden on the worker. Miners put in long hours of labor in remote and isolated locations, frequently quite a distance from medical assistance or emergency services. There is a constant threat of accidents, which, when combined with the pressure to meet production goals, creates an environment in which the stakes are always high. Throughout his career, Parker Schnabel has been exposed to the perils that are inherent in the gold mining industry. In spite of this, the recent collapse has brought to his attention, as well as the attention of his fans, the fact that the profession can be extremely unpredictable and dangerous. Miners are exposed to dangers on a daily basis, and no amount of experience or preparation can completely shield them from those dangers. Parker Schnabel, who is well known for his work on Gold Rush, has recently been through an experience that has altered the course of his life. The injuries he sustained as a result of an accident that occurred on the job prompted him to pause and reflect on his life, his career, and the risks he had been taking up until that point. Prior to the accident, Parker was constantly pushing himself and his crew to their limits, doing everything in his power to find more gold. Unfortunately, the accident occurred. He was intensely focused on achieving significant objectives, and nothing seemed to be too risky if it meant achieving those objectives. Nevertheless, Parker has begun to perceive things in a different light as a result of this terrifying event. Parker was forced to give serious consideration to the dangers he had been exposing himself to as a result of the accident, which had the potential to take his life. Parker had always been aware of the fact that gold mining is a challenging and risky business operation. However, he did not fully comprehend the risks until he was hurt and when he reflected on what had occurred. Only then did he realize the gravity of the situation. A change has occurred in his approach to both his life and his work as a result of this realization. Parker is still very enthusiastic about mining and discovering gold, but he has come to the realization that there are certain risks that might not be worth taking, regardless of the amount of gold that might be at stake. During the months that followed the accident, Parker has given a great deal of thought to the things that are most important to him. It is now more important than ever before for him to take care of his health, his life, and the people he finds important. When he was younger, it was simple for him to devote all of his attention to gold mining. However, after the accident, he has realized that there are other aspects of life that require his focused attention. However, this does not mean that he is giving up on his dreams of becoming a successful miner. Rather, it indicates that he is going to approach those dreams with a greater degree of caution and responsibility. Parker has realized that it is equally as important to be more intelligent about the manner in which he pursues his goals as it is to have the goals themselves. In spite of the fact that Parker has evolved in a great number of ways, the future is still unknown. There is a great deal of uncertainty regarding the next step that he will take. Is he going to keep giving himself and his crew the same amount of effort as he did before? Or is he going to take a step back and concentrate on ensuring their safety? In spite of the fact that the accident has unquestionably prompted him to give more consideration to the decisions he makes, only time will tell whether he will choose to slow down or continue to push for larger and better results. Whatever path he decides to take, it is undeniable that Parker is a person who is determined. In the past, he has always been able to find a way to get through difficult situations, and this most recent challenge is no exception. Those who are interested in Gold Rush are keeping a close eye on Parker to see what his next move will be. They have witnessed him confronting challenging obstacles in the past, but things appear to be different this time around. The accident was not merely a hiccup. Rather, it was a moment that brought about a complete transformation in everything. Are we going to see Parker return to his previous ways of taking significant risks in order to obtain significant rewards? Or will he opt for a more cautious and secure approach to his work? It is only Parker who can provide answers to these questions, and fans will have to wait and see what happens in the following episodes. Is the most recent risk that Parker Schnabel is facing merely a part of the dangers that are associated with gold mining, or is there something else going on behind the scenes? Share your thoughts with us, and don't forget to give it a like and subscribe for more content like this.